Hi, I'm Mike Gilliam, and this is A Slice of New York. We focus on the people, places, and things that make the city the special place that it is. The city is filled with well-known landmarks and history. There are giants in the worlds of fashion and business, the theater, sports, and just about everything you can imagine. To experience some of the very best in the world, all you have to do is stop, take a moment, and open your eyes to the things around you. Now, not everything is out in the open. Some are hidden gems and special secret spots that are hiding in plain sight, like midnight moments on Times Square. The hustle and bustle of Times Square. High energy 24/7. But every night, just before midnight, something very special happens. A countdown appears on the 90-plus screens, and suddenly there's a transformation.
My name is Jen Stark, and we're here celebrating Midnight Moments. I'm so excited to have this on 95 screens. It's insane.
Times Square, the crossroads of the world, is transformed into the world's largest digital art display, featuring artists from around the globe.
Times Square just feels very historic. I remember coming here as, a young person and a college student, and just seeing Times Square and being like, this is the center of the earth, and I want to have my artwork here someday. This is Drip Cascade. It's this psychedelic wash of different colors taking over New York City. It's almost like nature and color theory mixed together, just taking over the technology. It's so exciting to see it.
This exhibit is called Pixel Dust, created by local artist Leo Villarreal.
What's exciting for me is to see the moment in which all the screens suddenly go monochromatic, and suddenly you have this cohesive canvas that's radiating energy. This piece has been tailor-made to the screens that are here, so it's quite extraordinary what we've created. I'm based here in New York City. My studio's in Brooklyn in Sunset Park, and it's all custom software. For over 20 years, we've been developing our own code. We have an amazing team of technologists and 3D artists that help me make the tools I use to make my work.
Marina Zurkow is another local artist. She and her partner, James Schmitz, brought midnight moments to life with their work entitled The River is a Circle, Times Square Edition.
We've made a piece about a really specific place, the Hudson River. And to see the Hudson River flowing down this canyon is amazing. In the course of the under 3 minutes, you see sunrise, sunset, you see sunny day, you see transition to rain and snow.
And the artists featured in Midnight Moments all have similar reactions to their work being displayed on the largest digital canvas in the world.
I think the scale of this is tremendous, and the vividness of this environment, and the fact that you have this random audience that will suddenly stop whatever they're doing because it's not an advertisement anymore, is really more awesome than you might imagine.
It's hard to stay away. Once your piece is up, you feel this powerful attraction to come to Times Square at midnight every night.
Wow, impressive. Joining me now, the interim director of Times Square Arts, the people that run Midnight Moments, Anna Starling. Anna, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Anna, tell me, how did this all start?
So Midnight Moment started in 2012, and it started with just a handful of screens, and it really has grown from there. So now we present Midnight Moment every night at midnight from 11:57 to 12 a.m. on nearly 100 of the screens in the electronic billboards in Times Square.
So how does it work, though? Do you have like a little control room where somebody puts it all up? How do you put this together?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? A little button you could push. We actually coordinate with each, we work with the Times Square Advertising Coalition and a lot of the property owners and sign holders. We coordinate to get donated time from each sign. So it takes a lot of coordination to get the time donated from each sign holder, and then Once the artists are selected, we have to program each piece to fit on the different specs of each sign. So
Oh, so each one is different then?
each one's different, and
Okay.
it gets sent the night before. So from the first of the month to the end of the month, one artist runs, so 12 different artists a year. And just before the start of the month, the digital files get sent to all of the billboards, and then they turn on at 11:57 every night.
Okay, now is that computerized then, the fact that they all hit exactly at the right time?
It's computerized for each sign holder, so they each have to digitize and computerize when the content launches.
Okay, so how do you find the artists? How do you decide who's going to display? Because I gotta believe there are a lot of people who would want to have that canvas.
There definitely are. Yeah, so we select artists through an open call for proposals. We also directly solicit artists that we think would be a good fit for the program. And then we have a selection committee that reviews all the proposals and makes the best selections for what would be engaging for the audiences in Times Square.
Generally, when artists submit their work to you, do they all pretty much seem like things that would fit, or are some things that probably wouldn't work in that environment?
Yeah, some things, perhaps are not as dynamic for this large scale platform. So we tend to go for things with like saturated colors or patterns, shapes that move, a unique narrative that's told across all of the screens. But we have the expertise of the sign holders on the committee, so a lot of times they can use their expertise from the brands that engage on their boards to tell us, this might look great, or maybe we'll make these small tweaks. And so that's how we get to the final product.
Cool. Clearly, New Year's Eve and the ball drop, that's the biggest thing that happens in Times Square. But how is this received by people that come to Times Square?
We have a lot of intentional audience that now comes to actually experience this. They know it's happening. They set up at like 11:30 at night, and they wait for the midnight moment to tick down and start. And then we have the unintentional audience that just happens to be in Times Square. We have about 300,000 people that pass through Times Square every day. So some people will just be out there enjoying the evening, and then all of a sudden they'll come across this project. So it's a surprise and delight moment for anyone who happens upon it.
Tell me what it's like when you're standing in Times Square, like on the bow tie or whatever.
Yeah.
What's
It's
it
pretty
like?
magical to be standing there with a big group of people, and then it starts to tick down. So there's a countdown from 10 to 1, and then the project comes on all the screens, and it's a really immersive experience.
Tell me about some of the other things that you have.
We also have performances. We have a program called TSQ Live that features live arts and cultural programming throughout the summer, Tuesday through Friday. So
Like what types of things?
we partner with organizations like Carnegie Hall and Alvin Ailey, and we have DJs and live music, and a lot of things happen Tuesday through Friday, May through September, on the stage on 45th to 46th Street.
So if a person wants to find out what's going on in Times Square, and maybe they don't want to come all the way into the city to check it out, how can we find you and find out what's going on?
You can go to tsq.org, the Times Square Arts website, and then go to the Midnight Moment section, and then all the artists are highlighted there.
Okay, it's a great program. Anna, thank you. Anna Starling of Times Square Arts. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk music and some of the hidden historical spots, and a little later, we'll tell you all about this. It is often said that New York City has its own almost musical beat. And let's face it, there's music of every kind everywhere. Just like other things, you could very easily be walking past significant musical history and not even realize it. Jesse Rifkin is a New York City music historian and the owner and tour guide at Walk on the Wild Side Tours NYC. He's also the author of the book, This Must Be the Place. Jesse, a lot of music legends have called New York home. Where should we start with all this? You want to start with NoHo?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, NoHo, just within the handful of maybe 2-3 blocks, you can trace the roots of 3 massive, incredibly important genres. At the most famous location in that area, of course, would be the former location of CBGB,
Right.
the very famous fundamental punk club at 315 Bowery. And CBGB, where a lot of music venues last maybe a couple years, 5 years, CBGB was able to last for, decades, I think largely because of that location. in NoHo on the Bowery. When it opened in 1973, the Bowery was like the worst, most disreputable street in New York City, putting it pretty high in the running for the worst street in the world. But as it just so happened, it is kind of at this nexus point of several different neighborhoods that all gentrified in succession, right? The East Village, Soho, the Lower East Side, Alphabet City, right? It all kind of comes together on the Bowery. And at the time, because that area was so economically distressed, a lot of artists were able to live there on like next to nothing or literally nothing.
So who were some of the artists that lived in the area there close to CBGB's?
Yeah, I mean, almost literally within a stone's throw of CBGB, two of the Ramones, Joey Ramone and Dee Dee Ramone, were living on East 2nd, just around the corner from CBGB, with a friend of theirs named Arturo Vega, who came up with their logo and did a lot of the art direction for the band. So it's not even that they necessarily loved the club early on. It's just such a perfect geographic connection. They could walk their equipment out the door and onto the stage.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay. Now, Debbie Harry, she was also in the area?
Yeah, Blondie were living on Bowery, 266 Bowery, just like a block and a half south of CBGB. So again, they could see it out their window and walk down there. Talking Heads as well were living just 1 block away from Bowery on Christie Street. So it's all almost literally spitting distance for these bands.
All these people party together?
Yeah, not to say there weren't cliques within the scene, but yeah, they were all in the same bar at the same time, and none of them were very good. And then they just came over and over and played over and over, and the stakes were so low that they became some of the best bands the city's ever produced,
Are there other musicians from that area we should be talking about?
Yeah, if you zoom out just a little bit, Patti Smith, who was also part of that community, was living not too far away. Members of the band Television were living not too far away. The band Suicide was on Green Street in Soho. These were all part of that community, all coming to that same place and playing shows together. And press shows up and, record labels show up and it all gets called punk.
Wow.
That's really all there is to it.
That's cool. Yeah. Okay, what about David Mancuso's Loft? What's that all about?
Okay, so David Mancuso was a hippie and a record collector. He lived on Broadway, just 2 blocks west of CBGB. And on Valentine's Day 1970, David threw a party in his apartment that he advertised as Love Saves the Day, which is LSD. And he played a mix of rock and funk and soul and Latin music and jazz, and invited a bunch of his friends. And it's considered really to be the seminal moment in the birth of disco.
Wow.
And it went so well that David started throwing these parties every Saturday. It became, he spent his whole week preparing for the parties, and they were always invitation only. And so it was this safe space for people to come and be their freest, most childlike selves. There'd be balloons and a dinner buffet and a breakfast buffet and birthday cake. And
now, was this the gay community?
Well, it was a very mixed community. There were people from the gay community. There were people from the straight community. A lot of different ethnic backgrounds and economic backgrounds. It's an incredibly, incredibly mixed community. David himself was gay, and obviously that was a big part of it. But so much of what made it special, I think, was that it was deliberately a real mix of every type of person in New York City.
Did he call it disco?
No.
Okay.
No, he did not.
Okay, it was just kind of a party.
Exactly. It became something without him even intending it to be.
So it wasn't all the punk scene, and it wasn't all rock. There's other stuff going on in the city. Talk to me about some of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been incredible jazz in New York City for decades and decades and decades. And especially in the 60s and the 70s, everybody knows these really famous jazz clubs like the Village Vanguard, the Village Gate in Greenwich Village. But there was also simultaneously a lot of really creative and out there jazz, largely centered around NoHo again and the East Village. A lot of it was happening in people's loft spaces. There's a famous venue called Studio Rivbea, which a musician named Sam Rivers ran out of his home, and you'd come and you get a free bowl of soup and you could just watch, you know, world-class musicians play pretty much all night. Most famously, Ornette Coleman, who's a legend in the jazz world, actually ran a venue out of his home on Prince Street. He called it Artist Space, and he lived there and he rehearsed there, and people could just kind of walk in and watch one of the best jazz musicians in the world rehearsing.
I love this. You're very knowledgeable about this stuff.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so my book, This Must Be the Place, which came out in 2023, is sort of a history of music in New York City from roughly 1958 right up to COVID, as music scenes and eras relate to neighborhoods. So folk music and jazz in Greenwich Village, you know, punk in the East Village, disco around Soho, kind of going all the way up through stuff that was happening in Williamsburg in the 90s and 2000s, and just kind of looking at what about those neighborhoods and what about those eras allowed these communities to form and become what they were able to become.
Why did you write the book?
I wrote the book that I wanted to read. You know, I think a lot of the history of this stuff, like these are not necessarily obscure stories, but a lot of the history as it gets told is really kind of just focused on either like, you know, hero worship, or it's very academic and pedantic. And I didn't want either of those things. I just wanted like an accurate retelling of what happened in context, making the people just human beings who did human things. You know, music should be accessible to everybody.
Any feedback from any of the musicians?
Quite a bit, yeah. A lot of them were really happy about it. You know, I interviewed over 140 people for the book, so a lot of them, you know, were really supportive and really encouraging, which was wonderful. Some, of course, would have preferred some other things to have been said, but that's just the nature of writing a history book.
Okay, great information, Jesse. Appreciate it, for sure. And it sounds like a fun tour as well. Jesse Rifkin, author of the book, This Must Be the Place. Up next, more hidden gems and special spots, including many that are free. This is a slice of New York. I'm Mike Gilliam, and this is a slice of New York. We've got more hidden gems and special spots. Joining us, we have a digital content creator for Secret NYC, Brianna Marie Burke, and from something called QC New York, located on Governor's Island, Simone Melchionda. Welcome. Now, a lot of people think they know everything about New York. There's all this stuff here. We know our city, right? But they may not know about QC New York. What is it?
QC New York is actually a spa that was opened in 2022. It's an Italian spa, part of an Italian group, and it's located on Governor's Island, which is a small island at the south of Financial District. It's just 5 minutes ferry away to get there. And once you get there, it's basically another world, like an escape within the city. And in the spa, you will find all the core staples of a spa. There are saunas, there are pools, there is an iconic view of the skyline. And yeah, basically it's a way to restore yourself from the stress of the city. And it's just 5 minutes away from the city itself.
Let's break some of that out for just a minute, okay? Because you touched on a number of different things there that are pretty cool. Okay?
Yeah.
I want to start first with the pictures that I've seen where people are outside in the weather, but in some kind of pods or something, looking at the city. Tell me about that.
Yeah, like the main garden, you will find like some big heated pools that overlook the skylines. And if you go there in the summer or the winter, you will find, of course, different environment. In the summer, it's gonna look like more of a beach club. And in the winter, there are like some small covered igloos, sort of, where you can enjoy the outside weather, the outside without suffering the cold.
How'd you guys come up with the idea for this?
Oh, wow. It's a long story, actually. QC is a family-owned business. It was born in 1998. It's an Italian family, and they opened this first spa in the Italian Alps. And from there, now we have more than 15 locations. And QCNY is actually the first one in the US, and hopefully the first of many.
And is it open to like couples, singles? How does that all work?
Yeah, you can actually find anyone. Like, we're very inclusive. You will find a lot of couples, of course, some solo consumer, like they go there just to relax. They go there to read, they go there to work during the day for remote working, but also group of friends, family. It's really diverse. And that's what I think it's a beauty of it.
Okay, so Brianna, you cover New York City. You know the scene out there. That's a pretty cool place, but there are others as well too, right?
Yes, of course. There's plenty of really amazing spas all throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City, but I'm here to talk about more of the things that you can do after you get your spa day. Yeah.
Well, tell me, what can we do? He's already had a spa there a little bit and maybe grabbed a bite to eat, but what else can we do?
Yeah, well, my first spot that I would recommend is a bit far from Governor's Island, but I wanted to focus on places that are maybe hidden, people may not know a lot about them, free or otherwise affordable to visit. I would recommend if you spent a day at QC Spa, maybe going to an amazing townhouse called Levy Gorvey Diane on the Upper East Side. Now, if you're walking along the street, you would just think that you're passing by any old townhouse, but inside there is a massive art gallery that is filled with Andy Warhol pictures, Basquiat portraits, even some selected artworks by Keith Haring, and it's entirely free to visit.
Since we've been talking about art in this show, actually, and we looked for things that were very accessible. Maybe a person who wasn't totally into classical art might like to go and see. Are there some other things that are available?
Yes, most definitely. If you aren't really into Basquiat or Warhol, that's totally okay. There is a fantastic sculpture park in Astoria called Socrates Sculpture Park. It was founded in 1986 by an artist who renovated a former landfill site and transformed it into a space where newcoming artists can present their sculptures and their artwork. Now, this was such an amazing feat that they actually transformed it into a public New York City park in 1998. And I think that it's really incredible that when I talk to people a lot about this, they have no idea that New York City has a free sculpture park in the first place.
I didn't know. Who knew? Wow. The Bronx Zoo, is that free?
Yeah, so the Bronx Zoo is free on Wednesdays. People can get free admission if they reserve a ticket online in advance. But what I really love is going on a free Wednesday and then doing their wild encounters. This is a new program that the zoo is putting on where New Yorkers and people visiting can go and visit the residents of the Bronx Zoo up close in a safe environment. So we're talking you meeting a cheetah and the cheetah is only about a foot away. There's a bunch of really amazing birds that you can see and even hold. I recently went there and I met a sloth named Hans Slolo. And I don't think I'm being dramatic when I say that it was kind of a life-changing experience. It was so sweet to meet Hans up close, like look into his eyes, and
Did it acknowledge you?
yes, most definitely. He was very chill, very relaxed. It was great. And he was accompanied by 2 zookeepers who were telling me all about his life story and all of the work that the zoo is doing to conserve the planet and help save their species. So it was a really amazing, like up close journey that we went on.
Okay. Now, the New York Public Library
Yes.
offers a lot of things. And one of the things I've heard is that library card, which I recently got one of those, is kind of like a free pass at things, right?
Yeah. It's basically a key to the city. I mean, you can get more than just free books. You can see many museums. You can rent board games, which I had no idea you can do. My friends were saying we wanted to do a Catan night, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll just rent it out. We don't need to actually buy the game." You can also rent musical instruments, which I think is really amazing if you're trying to learn something new or get accompanied with something. You can do everything from like a flute to an electric guitar. Along with that, you can also rent studio space that's hidden inside of the Brooklyn Public Library that's right next to Prospect Park.
What type of studio space? You mean like for music?
Yeah, like recording studios. So
Really?
you can bring those instruments into the recording studio, or you could use it to record an audiobook, practice your public speaking. It's really whatever you would like to use it for, and you can rent it out for 2-hour increments.
Now, if people want to know more about the spas, how do they go about finding out?
Oh, sure. They can find us on Instagram, QC Spa, or come to our website, which is qcny.com.
And just one more question about the spas. How does it differ from other spas? What do you do differently?
Oh, sure. That's a good question. I think it's at the center of what we do is that we really see the spa as a place where you should decompress from your life. And we try to do that. Think about the spa not as a competitive sport. Like you just go there because you want to relax, and we try to make it special in any way we can. So of course there are like so many rooms you can go to, relaxation rooms. We always try to surprise you with special events. We offer every client for free candlelights, concerts. We do some bathing events. We do meditation. We do yoga. You never know what you're going to find, but probably you're going to find something there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And Brianna, how can we find your website?
So people can check us out at secretnyc.co. That's our website. And we always provide updates on our Instagram at secret_NYC.
Okay, that's going to have to be the last word. Thank you both very much. I want to thank all of our guests for coming on and sharing some of the very cool things and the hidden gems that make New York City so special. And thank you for spending time with us. I'm Mike Gilliam. We'll see you next time on A Slice of New York.